Hello again. It's just gone 5 o'clock in the morning here in London, just gone midday in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. We'll go there first of all because several explosions have been heard in the centre of the city, Jakarta. There's also been gunfire, some reports suggesting that there have been casualties. Witnesses saying there have been 3 explosions. At least one was in a Starbucks cafe. Other reports speaking of 3 dead people in the road. The details are still coming in, slightly unclear, but let's try to get a better picture with Christine Francisca from the BBC's Indonesian service joining us now on the line from Jakarta. What can you tell us? Because we heard of one explosion, now there are reports of others and not at the same time.
Yes, right. What we heard is there's several explosions, but the police have not confirmed yet how many explosions, because some of them, they said it's a grenade that's thrown because there's some people who run to the building and they chasing it. What we know is I talked to several witnesses. They said that it appeared to be a suicide bombing, and it did. There's more than one explosion. That's what I can tell right now.
Are we talking about specifically the Starbucks cafe, Christine, or are you talking about different ones? Could you just give us a bit more detail about the locations?
Well, the one that I really sure happening is the bombing in the small traffic police station in the intersection. So it's happened in the middle of the road. There's a small station. There's a small police traffic station, and the witness said there's several people running to the station and blast themselves.
Is there anything in that particular area that could be considered a target by people who would cause these kind of explosions?
Well, the area is actually the center of Jakarta, and there's a lot of business happening there. One of the busiest activities is happening in there, and there's some of the building is actually a shopping mall, so they're very crowded there. What I see is all the people working in the nearest building have been evacuated, and we still heard there's a lot of gun shooting, and police still chasing 1 or 2 perpetrators.
Okay, so if there was indeed a suicide bombing and gunfire, as you suggest, there are still perpetrators at large. What about any possibility of confirming the number of dead? Because there are various reports as well on this.
True, there's a various report. What I heard from one witness is one of the police that work in the station, in the traffic station, is dead. But police has not confirmed anything yet about the number, about the casualties, for sure.
Indonesia is on a particularly high state of alert, isn't it? I mean, there have been thousands of police officers deployed across the country since New Year's Eve. Is that state of alert, was it in force today?
Well, the bomb threat in Indonesia now is unlikely, because you will see that the economy is quite growing, and people don't really care much about terrorism anymore now, rather than maybe a few decades ago. But the rise of extremists start building up again. Like they have influence from ISIS and a lot of extremist groups. So it's quite concerned now, rather a few years back.
Christine, we appreciate the update. That's Christine Francisca from our Indonesian service speaking to us from Jakarta. Also there is Jeremy Douglas. Jeremy is from the United Nations office in the city. The office, Jeremy, is it correct the office is near where one of these incidents has taken place?
Yeah, it's across the street, so it's about 100 meters from where one of the bombs went off, maybe 150 from another. So we're literally just kind of kitty corner to where the incident took place. And right now I'm just walked over the window, I'm watching a SWAT team, which is kind of slowly inching up towards the corner.
So you clearly haven't been evacuated. Just give us a bit more detail about what you can see.
We're up on the 10th. We're stuck. We're basically stuck up on the 10th floor.
I see.
At the moment.
I see. Could you tell us a bit more about what you can see?
Yeah, at the moment, I can see police going back and forth, running into the scene with their armed units. And that's about all I can see from this vantage point. I can see the corner of a mall across the street where apparently there's some terrorists holed up inside the mall. But and I have a bird view of that. But I'm not quite sure what's going on. We hear a lot of information flying around right now, but we're just across the street.
Okay. Well, in fact, we're now looking possibly at what you're describing, because we can see the live pictures that are coming into us from Jakarta.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you mentioned 2 explosions, if I'm not wrong. Could you give us an idea about how much time there was between them?
Sure. Actually, I heard 5. It's hard to say who was exploding what, but I heard 5. What happened was we were driving into the building from the back side, thank God, because the situation happened on the front side of the UN building. But we were on the street there. We were driving in from the back. We got a phone call to our driver from our security guy saying, "Where are you?" We said, "We're driving into the back." He said, "Something happened in front." I got out of the car. And, we a bit of pandemonium, chaos, you know. I got out of the car and then I heard an explosion, and it was a big one, sizable anyway, not a grenade, bigger. And then went into the building, and I heard a third. We then went up the elevator. We're nice and safe up here on the 10th. We went up the elevator, and then we heard a 4th, then we heard a 5th, then we heard a 6th explosion, and we heard small arms fire at that point.
Could you give us an idea? We heard from our BBC colleague who was telling us about this area, but tell us a bit more about it. Are we talking about the heartbeat of Jakarta, right in the centre of the city?
Yes, exactly. So this is an area full of office buildings, full of big international hotel chains, full of the UN is here, and embassies. So basically, it's the heartbeat of the city. You have a lot of international community here and a lot of international investment in this neighborhood. So you couldn't get much more central than this in Jakarta.
In the back of your mind, Jeremy, is it the kind of thing that you think living in Jakarta could happen someday? You work for an international organisation that presumably gives you a lot of advice when you're located in a foreign country. Does the UN give you any advice about this kind of situation? Yeah,
in fact, that's why I'm here. I'm based in Bangkok, and I flew in for meetings with the government on transnational crime and counterterrorism initiatives with the government, which is my line of work. So it is one of those things. We know there's a background threat environment within Indonesia. The country does have al-Qaeda sympathizer groups for many years. Everyone knows that. We all seen the Taliban years ago. And they have the unfortunate situation where they have, give or take, some people say about 500 Indonesians have gone to Syria to fight. So they have ISIS sympathizers and possible returnees, foreign fighters returning. So it's a country that is an important country, but it also has that issue in the background, and it needs international assistance. It needs to work with the UN on this.
Does a situation like the one you're experiencing now suggest that the Indonesian government is not across the problem and can't manage it, or is it the kind of thing that could happen anywhere at any time?
I think Paris proved that it could happen anywhere, anytime, but there's more that can be done, clearly. Indonesia's really got to work with the neighbors. There needs Southeast Asia, because the groups that are active in Southeast Asia emerging someday, hopefully for them. And they operate across places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand. So it's important that the country take the issue seriously, but it's also important that this region take this issue seriously.
Who is leading the counter-terrorism operation in Indonesia? Is it, clearly it's going to be armed forces and military personnel, police or whoever they may be, but who's really making the decisions? Is it the government or is it those security forces? And does it make a difference?
think on this issue, you're going to have the police leadership, the military leadership, where there'll be one mind. They want to deal with this. Also, I know that we have had good positive signals from the political leadership that they want to take this issue seriously. But I think today demonstrates there's a ways to go to make sure that this is handled. You've got a serious massive terrorism is taking place of the capital of the country. So we've got, and it's still ongoing apparently. So there's definitely a leadership need, and we see signals of that. But we would be happy to work with the leadership on this.
Okay, Jeremy, look, we really appreciate your time. We won't detain you for too much longer. Just let's return to your personal situation and what's happening in that immediate area. How many of you are there in that building or that you're gathered with that are stuck there on the 10th floor?
Well, there's probably, on the 10th floor, there'd be about 30 of us. The 15 colleagues that work with me in the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. And then we've got, I'm here with the head of the UN for Indonesia and a couple of colleagues. So there's, all up, I'm saying, thinking about 30. And then there's other floors in this building. The UN has a few floors. So there'll be a couple hundred staff in here right now. Okay,
and just finally, from the scene that you can see outside, are there local people around, or has everyone been told to leave and now it's only military and police or armed service personnel there?
From what all I can see is SWAT teams, a couple of ambulances, and that's it. I did see at one point some journalists out there, but I don't see them at the moment, so they must have been moved off the scene. But it's just military and police and ambulances.
Okay, and can you hear any gunshots?
No, it stopped about 20 minutes ago, and from what we've been told, they've retreated into a shopping mall across the street. That's what we're told. We're still waiting for confirmation, but they're not going to let us leave the building until this place is cleared, and I don't expect that to be for a few hours.
Jeremy, thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Jeremy Douglas from the United Nations, and obviously we hope that you stay safe. Speaking to us from Jakarta, these are the live pictures from the Indonesian capital. And as far as local timings are concerned, there have been reports that at about 10:30 a.m. To around 11:30 a.m., there were multiple explosions, gunfire heard, as Jeremy Douglas from the UN there was telling us. He heard 5 explosions, also exchanges of gunfire, according to our colleague there from the BBC's Indonesian service who's in Jakarta, because presumably, well, I should say reportedly, according to Jeremy Douglas again, a few gunmen, potential terrorists, as he called them, are holed up in a building. The area has been cordoned off. There are armed service personnel trying to resolve the situation. We don't know in terms of the number of casualties, injured, dead, what they may be at the moment, but a serious situation developing in Indonesia, in the capital, Jakarta. SWAT teams on location in the very, very centre of the city, where there are foreign embassies, many offices as well. So just trying to get a better picture of what's happening at the moment in Jakarta. Kiki Siregar from the BBC's Indonesia service is on the line now. Just give us a summary of what we know at the moment, please, Kiki.
What we know at the moment is that there have been a few explosions happening this morning here in central Jakarta. The recent report says that there have been 6 explosions, though police can't really confirm that at this stage, but that there have been at least 4 explosions this morning.
Sorry, you were going to say, but I was interrupting you. One eyewitness who we've just spoken to from the United Nations says 5 explosions. I'm trying to get a better idea for our viewers about how spaced out they were. Can you give us any details about that?
The police has confirmed that the first explosion happened around 10 a.m. local time, which is around 3 hours ago. And it is believed that the last explosion happened shortly before 12 p.m. here in Jakarta, so like about an hour ago.
The pictures that we're seeing right now are very dramatic, Kiki. We're seeing armed personnel running across the road, armoured vehicles in the middle of the road. It looks as if they're heading towards a specific area. And
Yes.
Jeremy Douglas, again from the UN, was giving us very, very useful information. He said that he had heard that there were a few armed men, who he called terrorists, holed up inside a building.
Yes.
Do you know any more about that?
We've been trying to confirm this with the police, but the police at this stage only can confirm that they know that there are a few gunmen who threw grenades from their motorcycles into the area. And to give a bit of a context, in the area there are a few cafes, restaurants, as well as a cinema. So it's a very busy place. It's in central Jakarta. And in the surrounding, you actually have embassies as well, such as the Japanese embassies, the Pakistani embassies, and also some big other Indonesian organizations. So it's a very busy area. And the police confirmed that there have been a number of casualties. At least 2 people have been confirmed dead so far.
Okay, that's the first time that we've heard about the number of dead from, well, a trusted source like you, Kiki. So thank you very much for that detail. The country has been on high alert recently after the government said it had foiled a plot by Islamic militants to attack government officials, foreigners and others. When was that specific threat?
The specific threat was at the end of 2015, shortly before Christmas and New Year's. And therefore, the police put the nation on a high alert and has put many officers around major facilities and buildings as well, especially during Christmas. Luckily, nothing happened during that period. But again, today the police says that they are suspicious that somehow today's incidents are related with the threats they've been receiving at the end of last year. But of course, they don't know for sure right now who is actually or who are the perpetrators.
Kiki, stay with us. I'm just going to update our viewers who may be joining us. It's the live scene that you can see in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta, and it's now just after 12:15, around 10 o'clock, 10:30 or so. Multiple bomb blasts heard in the Indonesian capital, right in the centre of the city, a location which is full of office buildings, foreign embassies as well. Reports saying that suicide bombers, Kiki Sirigar from our Indonesia services with us, telling us that reports of grenades being thrown from a man or men on a motorbike. 2 people confirmed to have died so far, and also reports that possibly even a couple of gunmen are holed up inside a building. Gunshots, exchange of gunfire heard, not heard now for about 20 minutes, according to an eyewitness, Jeremy Douglas, who we just spoke to, who's trapped on the 10th floor of a building, not very far at all, a few hundred meters from this scene. Kiki, where are you in relation to the pictures that we're seeing now, which is the scene?
I'm actually not too far from the scene. The big problem is that the police has not allowed people to go to the area because they believe that the area is still very dangerous. And that's also one reason why they cannot confirm the exact number of casualties yet.
Could you give us a feeling of what's happening in the streets around you? Are there still people there, or is the whole area being cleared? Is there a sense of panic? Are people being calm in moving away?
It's a mixture of different kind of situations. Very nearby the scene where the explosions happened, there's now a police line, so people cannot go further to that particular place. Therefore, people are gathering nearby to really know what's happening, especially journalists. But around 500 meters away from the area where you also have actually major shopping malls here in Jakarta, the situation is pretty much still calm. Everything seems to be under control, and people are still having lunch because it's lunchtime now here in Jakarta. So, yes.
The pictures that we can see, Kiki, suggest to the untrained eye, mine, in other words, that these are police officers at the moment that we can see. We can see their police motorbikes. There were some armed people, I should say official personnel with weapons walking by, but presumably there must be anti-terror specialist units there as well.
Yes. That's what we've been hearing. We're hearing that there are anti-terror personnel at the scene because Indonesia did witness a few terrorist attacks a few years ago. That Indonesia has been relatively safe for the last few years. So today's incident is a bit of a shocking for many people here.
What's the reputation of Indonesia's military intelligence in terms of the forewarning that it may have had of something like this?
During the last couple of years, the reputation of the police forces here in Indonesia did gain better recognition. They've been working together with other intelligence agencies from other countries such as Australia, and the police claim that because of the help of the Australian forces, they knew that there were threats for Indonesia or in Indonesia for last year, at the end of last year, almost when Christmas period. But people also at the same time are now recognizing that the police is constantly doing their best to protect the society. But obviously what happened today is something no one could ever want to happen or imagine.
Again, as we see these live pictures, Kiki, what we can't see is any damage caused. And clearly, I'm presuming that the police aren't allowing the TV cameras to go right up to the exact location of the scene where possibly even these two people that you're reporting have died. But you mentioned grenades earlier. Grenades have a certain force. Bombs can be much bigger than that. Jeremy Douglas from the UN said he thought one of the explosions was massive. Can you give us an idea of the size of the blasts?
I've been hearing from eyewitnesses that the blasts were indeed very huge and that therefore a number of buildings in the area have been totally damaged. Eyewitnesses have said that a Starbucks cafe, a McDonald's restaurant and a cinema in the area have been damaged. But this is something, unfortunately, I cannot see with my own eyes.
OK, Kiki, listen, we're going to leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much indeed, Kiki Siregar from the BBC's Indonesian service, giving us the latest information we have, which still to a certain extent is a little bit sketchy, but certainly the facts as we know them at the moment, according to Kiki, 2 people at least are reported to have died after multiple explosions in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. These are the live pictures that you can see. That sort of access seems to be quite unique. And there, possibly an anti-terror specialist telling that cameraman that he had to move away and switch off his camera. So now the picture has moved back to here. This is rather calmer. But we're talking about the very heartbeat of Jakarta, and 5 explosions reported to have been heard by an eyewitness we spoke to just a few minutes ago, who was in a UN office just about 100 meters or so away. Kiki telling us that people believe that some grenades at least were reported to have been thrown by a man or men on motorbikes. As you can see on the screen there, also we're reporting that one of the explosions happened in a Starbucks cafe. There are foreign embassies in this area, also as indicated on the screen as we're telling you there. There are plenty of offices. People, of course, have been told to leave the area. There are specialist units, there are SWAT teams, there are police cars, there are armoured vehicles. It's just coming up to 12:30 in the afternoon in Jakarta. The blasts happening, we believe, between 10:30, 11:30. And as Kiki again was telling us, and Jeremy Douglas from the UN told us, that at least 1 or 2 of the bombs people thought were massive ones. We haven't seen any damage to any buildings at the moment, but it's reported that they have also been damaged. bbc.com/news has this breaking story for you as well. At the moment, you are watching us live on BBC World News.